In the news this week, State of Decay renewed calls to improve public housing conditions for Aboriginal communities.
Plus, state government to introduce new counter-terrorism laws to neutralise threats.
Liberals regained the seat of Cottesloe following the by-election.
Also, major drug seizure following 3 separate police raids in 24 hours.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Leung and Danielle Staniskov.
Good evening. Pictures of the WA remote public housing have emerged online recently, showing the low quality of the public housing available to the Aboriginal communities. These images have triggered calls for the state government to spend more money on good quality housing. Taylor Hannah, what can you tell us about these properties?
Well, Ivan, the Minister for Housing said the dwellings in remote communities have an average lifespan of only 8 years, and the constant attention required to maintain these properties is more expensive than actually building them.
Right now, as of June of this year, we are currently sitting in a situation where we'll lose $100 million worth of Commonwealth contribution to that particular program, and will make delivering services and outcomes to Aboriginal people very difficult.
The pictures shared online show run-down, ramshackle properties. Aboriginal activist Mervyn Eades said 90% of the houses are not suitable to live in, exposing people to health hazards like asbestos and mould.
Some of the houses I've seen, I cannot believe state housing, the Department of Housing, have people paying rent for these places. And as you know, a lot of the ministers and that talk about the remote community. It's not only the remote community, it's Metro, Perth. The houses are not livable and should not have families living in them.
Mr Eades is calling to the government to create more livable housing for the growing population in the Aboriginal community. Back to you, Danielle.
Taylor, thank you. WA police officers will now have the licence to neutralise terrorists following the introduction of laws allowing lethal force in terror incidents. The legislation will give officers the power to take pre-emptive action against terror acts, but experts believe it won't deter terrorism from taking place. Nelson Liu reports.
Gavin Wicks has faced terrorism and security risks as a former New South Wales police officer. He's been prepared for threats for over 25 years, but the now WA security consultant says new lethal force laws for officers are now necessary.
I think they're needed given the security issues that we're facing in the world today.
Legislation introduced into Parliament this week gives officers more clarity to preemptively shoot to kill in declared terror situations.
These laws are put in place to help the decision-making process.
It comes as a result of 2 deaths during the Lynch Cafe siege in 2014.
We need to equip our police force with extraordinary powers for extraordinary times.
We want to make sure that our police have the opportunity to use lethal force to protect the public and to protect themselves.
The state government says the new legislation will help police neutralise terror threats more effectively, but shooting to kill still isn't an easy decision.
If we talk about reasonable suspicion, police already operate on that.
But Gavin says the laws have limitations with restrictions to planned operations and won't deter terror acts. WA's terror threat remains as probable with the rest of the nation, and police hope they won't need the laws.
Ideally, we would never have to use them.
Nelson Liu, WAMN News.
The Liberal opposition has regained the seat of Cottesloe, with David Honey won the by-election this week. It comes after former Premier Colin Barnett quits Parliament in January this year. Following the victory, Mr Honey thanked the voters for their support.
It's a big responsibility that I take very seriously, but look, it's great to have the campaign out of the way. I'm just really looking forward now to having that opportunity to represent the people of Cottesloe.
Right now, everyone in the party has a shadow cabinet responsibility. I'm sure David's going to be. We haven't discussed it, but I can assure everybody in Western Australia and in Cottesloe, David has a long and important future as a member of the Liberal team.
More than 50 kilograms of methamphetamine has been seized this week during 3 separate operations in the space of 24 hours. Officers seized 31 kilograms off the coast of Port Dampier, 20 kilograms concealed in an interstate traveller's luggage, and 526 grams during a search of an Armidale residence.
We understand the scourge that meth is in our community. We understand that it destroys people's lives, that it destroys family lives, and that it's a driver of crime.
We must continue to drive the demand down. So long as there is a demand from the community, suppliers will continue to try and traffic drugs.
Australian Navy veterans suffering from radiation after British nuclear weapons tests in the 1950s have vented their anger after being left out of lifelong medical insurance. The federal government announced a program last year giving Montebello Island nuclear veterans access to a health gold card, but many missed out because they were exposed after June 19, 1958. Veterans and their families say the situation is infuriating after serving the country.
Of the 8 people that went ashore, the 7 and myself, most of them died. Some very good friends of mine died in their early 30s. You've got to take into account that when this happened, there was no such thing as Medicare. We paid the bills ourselves.
Former South African President Jacob Zuma will face corruption charges following his resignation as president last month after facing no confidence vote. 75-year-old Mr. Zuma denied allegations including 16 counts of money laundering, fraud and racketeering. South African Chief Prosecutor believed there were reasonable prospects of a successful prosecution. Russia has rejected allegations that they have any involvement with nerve agent attack on former spy Sergei Skripal. Western country leaders, including the United States, Britain, Germany and France, released a joint statement. They labelled the incident as an assault on Britain's sovereignty and breach of international law. UK has recently expelled 23 Russian diplomats and suspended high-level talks with Russia following the incident.
And finally, this week, more than 20,000 participants will be brave and shave as the 20th anniversary of the world's greatest shave will see people colouring, cutting or shaving their hair and donating to the Leukaemia Foundation. 35 Australians are diagnosed each day with blood cancer, and the world's greatest shave provides necessary funding to Australia's leading research institutes to develop safer and more effective treatments to save lives.
So it's a bold move to shave your hair. It's a big sacrifice and it's a show of support to those blood cancer patients and other cancer patients who don't have the choice.
Donations can be made until the end of June online at www.worldsgreatestshave.com or by calling 1-800 500 088.
And that's our programme for the week. We have the latest news on our website and Facebook page.
Until 8 o'clock next Sunday, please take care and good evening.
Good night.